Thank you everybody for joining our May Members Forum. We're excited because we've got Brett West back on with us again. We've had him on for the first time a couple of months ago now, and he had so much information we ran out of time, we all got cut off. So this time he's under some strict rules. He's going to keep to his time frame, but he's going to recap on what he missed from last time to share with us, and then he's got some new material also to bring through. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Brett. Thanks very much for your time today.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, like I said, like Sarah said, I'm gonna go back through the previous presentation and share some things that I didn't get to share last time. So on studies involving tea noni juice and some of our other products such as Max. The one I stopped off last time when I was talking about athletes and the effect of tea noni juice on athletes. And there's a lot of good information there about how it protected the muscle from damage and had strong antioxidant activity that helped these athletes increase their endurance. And it was a validation of some of the traditional uses of noni fruit, where the Pacific Islanders would take noni fruit with them on their long fishing trips and on island-to-island voyages. And so we were able to verify that in a couple studies. There was one more. I don't recall if I shared that one or not, but I'll just recap that one also real quick. And that was involved cyclists who, this was done at a university in Santiago, Chile. And we had these cyclists basically use a placebo or tea noni juice. And the placebo also was known for some antioxidant activity. But the effect of tea noni juice on increasing their fitness level, which was measured through something called VO2 max. And that's a measurement of how well they can breathe in the oxygen, take it into their body, use it in their cells in the mitochondria to produce energy. They actually had a significant improvement compared to this other group that was using what we call a placebo juice. So that's kind of where I finished off there. Now, we did a study in Russia, and this was through the Institute of Nutrition, which is part of the Russian government there. The reason we did this is in Russia, we had the opportunity to make a kind of a health claim for our products there, for our juices. And so we took advantage of this, but we had to do this through the government and arrange for the study to be done, pay for that to be done, but it was done, again, independent because they're watching this and making sure that it meets all the criteria that was involved or required. And this study involved people, obese patients, people who are a certain grade of obesity, very high grade of obesity. And the purpose of this study was to see if tea noni juice and Max, both tested separately, could have a beneficial effect on these people in their weight loss efforts. So they were enrolled in a trial. This was a 6-week trial, involved 90 people, and they had an in-clinic phase, basically a few weeks where they were under supervision. They were on a calorie-restricted diet. They had to exercise and so forth, and then it was compared to a control group. So we had a tea noni juice group, a Max group, and a control group that just had the caloric restriction, the exercise, everything else except for the taking a few ounces or a few milliliters per day of either T&J or Max. So they all lost weight as expected. And the T&J group and the Max group were the same as the control group, and the difference began when they left the clinic. The significant difference began when they left the clinic. So they had all dropped some weight. Oh, I do need to correct myself there. There was an actual difference. The muscle mass loss was less in the T&J, tea noni juice, and the Max groups. That was what we had seen with these athletes as well, preservation of muscle mass, lean muscle mass. And so when they left the clinic, the tea noni juice group and the True Age Max group, all containing noni, of course, they continued their weight loss or continued to maintain that lost weight. There was a bit of a rebound in the low-calorie exercise-only group. And this, again, is attributed to that preservation of lean muscle mass, which helps burn those calories better. So that was one of the big takeaways from that study. Also saw improvements in something we called atherogenic index, which is measurements of the blood lipids and things that healthy cardiovascular system measurements, and improved metabolism, again, because the lean muscle mass or the muscle was preserved better. So when you drop weight, you're going to lose not only the fat, but you will lose some muscle. That was prevented a bit with Max and TNJ. And we did a study in Japan. Let me go back up here. A large population study, and we did these at 10 different centers, 10 different cities throughout Japan, where we enrolled people who, some of them had been customers of ours, some had been just people off the street we talked to, and we had them fill out a survey, and then we used our a scanner to measure advanced glycation end product levels in the skin. And I won't get into the details there, but basically, as we ingest sugar from our diets, excess sugar can be ultimately converted into something called advanced glycation end products, and those have a negative impact on our long-term health. So we assessed their iridoid intake, which was a major phytochemical in noni fruit and in some of the ingredients in these products, by determining how much they drank of noni, and whether it was Tisha noni juice, True Age Extra, True Age Max, these products, whether they had another source they used, and then calculated that and did the statistical analysis after we measured, of course, the advanced glycation end product levels in their skin. What we found is that that as your iridoid intake increases, that your AGE levels compared to your age group is much lower. Now, as we all get older over time, our AGE levels tend to increase, and so you have to look at each person based on their age and see how they compare to their peer group based on age. We saw that as people basically drank noni, their AGE levels were reduced. So it's showing a protective effect there against the formation or the accelerated accumulation of advanced glycation end products. So that has long-term benefits over time. It's not necessarily something you can feel, right now, but it's something you will see in the long run and be feeling healthier for a lot longer. There was a study done at the University of Hamburg in Germany involving gingivitis. Now, we know that noni fruit had been used, it showed some antimicrobial activities, it had anti-inflammation actions. This kind of combines those together in the gums, in the mouth. And this was a study that involved a smaller number of patients, but it was to see what impact drinking Tisha noni juice had on gingivitis and on what they call bleeding indices, inflammation, and so forth. And it didn't take very long for them to start to see the impact of Tisha noni juice on these people that had gingivitis. That it decreased bleeding, decreased inflammation, gum health was much better. It had a big impact there. And that was published in a journal called Modern Research in Inflammation. Then there's a case report I wanted to just talk about here. This isn't a clinical trial, even though I talked about clinical trials and I showed you that very large population survey study we did in Japan. This is a one-person study. And this one's interesting because it involved a man who had Crohn's disease for more than 10 years, and he was using something called Humira to control this. And, Crohn's disease, he was losing weight, the GI tract is inflamed and so forth. He was trying to control this, and he's still not doing well. He was able to get his C-reactive protein levels down to 1.2 milligrams per liter. That is lower than it was before, but he wasn't seeing any further progression. This, of course, long-term would be a problem. He needs to get nutrition into his body, nutrients in there. You have to do something about this condition. So he began drinking a noni juice product, which was our True Age Extra time. And as he began to drink that, after 6 months afterwards, his C-reactive protein levels went down to 0. And so he was, and C-reactive protein is a measurement of kind of systemic inflammation through the body. So it's a way to gauge to see if what you're doing is improving or getting worse. And then eventually he was able to stop his Humira injections altogether and saw quite a bit of improvement in his health and energy levels as well. So that was published we published that as a case report because it was such a striking example of what can happen in some people. Now, we did, I talked about some cardiovascular health benefit studies that we did previously. And this one I wanted to mention here. This was done at Brigham Young University, Hawaii, which is a campus on the island of Oahu. And this involved just 10 people. But this was a study looking at people to see what benefits it might have on blood pressure. And this was in people that were somewhat overweight. There's something we called syndrome X, or metabolic syndrome is the more common term for this, where you just start to see some increases in blood pressure related to suboptimal health. Maybe they're getting a little big in the midsection, not as active as they were when they were younger. The body's starting to respond. When they drank tea noni juice, 4 ounces, that's about 120 milliliters per day. After 1 month, they started to see some declines in systolic blood pressure. And we followed that up later on with a study in people that had normal, healthy blood pressure, and didn't see any change in their blood pressure. And that shows that this is not a drug-like effect. This is something that's helping the body balance out what it needs. So if this was a drug-type product, you would see blood pressure decline regardless of whether it was healthy or not. In this case, we saw that where there was slight elevations, there was a slight reduction. Where there was no elevated blood pressure, there was no effect. So it's just, again, helping the body stay healthy, basically, and provide what it needs. We did the study with a cholesterol study in non-smokers. We had done one previously in heavy smokers and saw benefits there. In the higher the cholesterol levels that were elevated in these heavy smokers, the greater the impact on lowering those cholesterol levels. This group involved people that had mild cholesterol levels, and to see what effect it would have on that. Again, there was very subtle change to those levels in these non-smokers, and those that were, right at the edge of healthy levels, they didn't see any significant change. That's because they didn't need it. And this shows what we call an adaptogenic activity, like what I explained before with the blood pressure effects and the cholesterol. If they're not elevated, they don't see any change because the body doesn't need that. And whatever is these phytonutrients, phytochemicals, the noni fruit are not going to cause the body to be out of an abnormal state. They're just going to help it go into what we would consider a healthy state. Now, there's a study, I'm showing you the slide here. This is a German titled journal. This has since been published in another one as a full study. This was done at the University of Hamburg also, and involved people with type 2 diabetes. Basically, they saw fasting blood glucose levels controlled, especially the morning levels, with use of tea noni juice over time. And this was a big thing that with a number of patients is they would bring them in over time. They'd enroll a new patient, get them on the study, see the effects. And when they finally collected all the data, and when they had enough people to do some good statistics, they saw, wow, this is impacting these people's health. It's having an impact on healthy blood glucose levels and fasting levels, and also something we called hemoglobin A1C, which is a measurement of long-term blood sugar control. So some real benefits there from tea noni juice, and we see this affects the antioxidant effects, the joint health benefits, all of these really cool things from tea noni juice and from the products that contain our fruit from French Polynesia, and helping people just maintain optimal health. Now, again, this doesn't replace good health habits. It can help augment those. If you combine those together, you'll see even greater benefits. But it's something that really helps you stay healthier longer. Now, I'm going to actually reference this study that I'm mentioning here. I'm going to switch presentations right now. See if I can manage this well enough or not. Stop the share here and go to the next one and discuss these studies here that I was in that last slide. So bear with me a moment. Now I'm going to put this slide up here, and I'm going to show it again at the very end of this presentation, but here's some websites you can go to, web addresses where these studies are published. And one thing we do at Morinda is we do research that's valid research and that it can withstand what we call peer review, which is scrutiny by other scientists. And then when because it goes through that process, we can publish these in medical and scientific journals. And then some of these are available on the internet, and you can go and read the studies. And something that's important to us in validating the benefits and the safety of our products, because we want people to understand that these are good products. It's just not, puffery. This is actual, backed up with science. So, what do people say noni juice does for them? You'll hear this from people as you talk to them. Everybody's got an opinion or an experience as to what noni juice does for them. These are some numbers I'm going to share with you that are backed up with a survey done among European consumers, where it was systematically collected and then the results published. This involves 1,712 European drinkers of Tahitian noni juice. And the number one benefit was energy. People felt they had more energy. And this is about 30 to 40% of all the people that used Tahitian noni juice said they had more energy. They felt better. Again, this harkens back to what I talked about with the athletes and the Polynesians using the fruit on long fishing voyages. It helps you feel better for many reasons. Some of those details I talked about earlier in antioxidants. They felt better overall. They had what we call better quality of life. They just felt better. And some of these other reasons may contribute to that, such as the joint and back health. They just felt better. Their joints felt better. Their backs felt better. And then they had reported immune system benefits, that they weren't getting as sick as often. And they described certain illnesses that they weren't getting as much. And that represents an improved immune system or a healthy immune system. Now, interestingly enough, this European survey matches one that was done in Fiji with a large number of people, and this was a recent study done among the rural populations in Fiji who used noni fruit. They called it Kura there, and they reported their analysis, and they said that a large number of the benefits that people reported for noni fruit fit within a few categories, and they matched these ones that we're listing here as well, that the Europeans experienced as well. So they reported having better sleep and digestion and stomach health benefits there, that things were working better internally, and less allergies, and they were breathing more, the asthma was down. And then the last, to round out the top 10, the skin health, they had better skin condition and not feeling as much headaches, and then the gynecological issues were not as predominant or as frequent in some of the women that were drinking this juice. So this is kind of an idea, if you want, of what people say noni juice does for them. This does match up with some of the French Polynesia or Tahitian data that was presented. There was a doctorate of pharmacy named Paul Petard who wrote a book called Useful Polynesian Plants, except that was written in French. And he describes the benefits that people ascribe to noni traditionally, and they match up with this as well. And then if you go to island to island, you can see similar things. So they're all lining up nicely, and because, of course, it's backed up by actual benefits and actual effects on the body. Now I'm going to talk about noni fruit skin health studies. We have, and the reason we're interested in this right now, of course, we've launched a product that Noni Plus Collagen that's designed to help with the skin. Some of this was talked about by some of my coworkers in a previous conference call and a video conference, and I'm just going to review these again. Again, one of the papers that I cited there, I'll just show you again. Here's the paper. It's a review that I wrote that summarizes all these things I'm talking about. Does present one new clinical trial I'm going to share with you in a couple of more slides here. But again, you can go online and look at that and review that. It is technical. but you can read that and try to understand as much as you can. Our IPCs are smart people, and I think they'll get that, and people you associate with, I think will understand it too if given some time to read through that. But noni fruit influences the skin health by increasing the expression of what are called extracellular matrix proteins, genes. These are genes in the cells, and they basically produce the collagen and the elastin, the genes that turn on the mechanisms in the cells that produce those things. So the skin, that's the support network for your skin that makes it nice and supple and has nice rebound and looks good. Noni juice helps turn those genes on, basically. Then also, as a result of that, in conjunction with it, it promotes fibroblast proliferation. Fibroblasts are the cells that actually make those extracellular matrix proteins and then connect them all together in the skin too. So you need to have those two working together. And it also protects those fibroblasts against oxidative damage by the activation of something called NRF2. That's a transcription factor in the cell nucleus and the DNA that kind of turns on an antioxidant response to help quench all those damaging radicals that attack the structures within our body and within the cells, such as the collagen, and can damage those things. And once those reactive oxygen species damage those structures, they don't work as well. So, or the cells don't work as well. So by turning on the NRF2, it kicks in a whole bunch of antioxidant machinery that protects the skin, as well as the rest of the body too. And then they inhibit something, the noni juice helps inhibit something called matrix metalloproteinases. These are basically enzymes that go and chew up and break down the collagen and elastin, those things that we want to have intact to help our skin be healthy and function properly. And then I again list here the antioxidant and anti-glycation, the anti-AGE activities. Those last, the oxidation and glycation or AGE formation, those can damage those protein structures that keep our skin healthy. So that's kind of a summary, a shorter version of what I explained in that paper. Just a little background so you can understand more of what I'm talking about here. In the DNA, I have a picture here on the left is a fibroblast. It's a collagen forming cell. You have the DNA in the nucleus. It produces, the genes are turned on, and it sends a signal to the other parts of the cell that basically say make procollagen chains. Those procollagen chains are then formed into what we call collagen fibrils. They're put together again into collagen fiber. So if you've ever made rope, just think of all the parts coming together. Now you have this collagen fiber, but unlike rope, this is springy. It stretches, it compresses, and then those collagen fibers are integrated into the skin. So a little visual of how this progresses. Now, a study on this, one of the earliest ones done, or not one of the earliest, but one done a few years ago, was done in mice. And they drank noni juice for 60 days and looked at the type of collagen that was produced in the skin. There's a collagen type 1 and a collagen type 3. There's other ones as well, but we looked at these structures here. And we saw that there's a control group that had no noni juice, and of course those that were given noni juice. And you see that the collagen type 1 and collagen type 3 production was better in the mice after drinking the noni juice for 60 days. So we see that there's a real effect there in the skin. Now there's another study that was done by a group, independent group at a university in the Caribbean, and they looked at the effect of noni juice on helping wounds heal. And what they found is that as these mice drank noni juice, their wounds healed quicker when they had a wound. And then they could sample the tissue from that wound to measure the collagen content. That's where that hydroxyproline measurement comes from. And they saw that basically these animals, as they drank noni juice, the body was producing collagen faster to help that wound close faster. And so noni has a real effect there in producing that. Now, those were some animal studies that were done by other groups. This one here was one that we had helped support. This was a pediatric burn patient study. This was done in in Santa Cruz, Bolivia. I was just talking to my son this afternoon. He lives down there in Santa Cruz right now, and he's about a half hour away from this hospital. And this is the Dr. Mario Ortiz Suarez Children's Hospital in Santa Cruz. And this doctor he heard about, he worked with some IPCs that had contacts. He heard about how the skin health benefits, are very promising for Noni, and for the anti-AGE activity is very promising for wound healing. So he had some children. There were 30 of them. He had informed consent from their parents, and the families were all into they wanted the study to see this progress with their children. So basically, they drank 30 mils of True Age Max. Now that has our noni juice in there. It's basically Tisha noni juice with some olive leaf extract in there. And they drank this 2 times per day for up to 30 days, up to 1 month. And they charted their results, so forth, and did examinations of their wounds and see how they're progressing. And what they found is that in these children, they saw their moods improved. Their mood improved. They felt better, of course. And they had faster development of what's called granulation tissue. That's basically the new tissue that is healing, the new skin being formed. That was developing faster. Those wounds were healing. And not only that, the quality of the wound was better than what they had seen with the other kids who hadn't been given True Age Max in the past. Is that the organization of the new skin tissue was better. So the scarring would be less. Everything was better as they healed. And then also it decreased hospitalization time. Of course, if you have improved granulation rates and wound healing rates, and the quality is better, they don't need to stay in as long. And they felt better. So this was a human study with our patients to confirm what we had seen in all these other studies. And this, of course, is a traditional benefit also attributed to Noni in the Pacific Islands. And we have more scientific rigor applied here in seeing that effect, improving that effect. Now, we did a study with our Noni Plus Collagen product. Now, of course, this product was designed because we saw these skin health benefits. Noni can help skin health by helping the body produce collagen, protecting that collagen, protecting the cells that produce collagen. And what happens when you give you give people a good source of collagen that they can incorporate quickly and use? Well, that's what we're testing here in this product that was designed. So we did this for a 21-day study. We looked at what's called skin elasticity. And you measure it with a device called a cutometer. And there's lots of studies done on skin health that use this device, this cutometer device. Well validated, lots of publications with it. So we use this in assessing the skin elasticity before drinking this product and what it was afterwards. And also measured skin AGE or skin glycation levels, and for 21 days. So what we saw was that the collagen and elastin deposition in the skin increased. And the reason we know that is because of the measurements, the skin elasticity measurements. And I'll show you some of those results in a moment here. And the scanner we used showed that the AGE levels went down, which of course was expected because of the Noni component. And then based on one of those specific skin elasticity measurements, which is called biological elasticity, it takes into account the elastin and the collagen, which is more mechanical elasticity effects, but also the skin hydration state. And we saw that improved together. So that indicates that possibly that the hyaluronic acid concentration increased in the skin as well. So it would retain the moisture better. So it had these benefits there for skin health. And so here's the results here we saw. You can see the yellow on the left is before, and the one on the blue on the right is afterwards. This is for net elasticity, the R5 measurement from this cutometer. And that represents the more of the mechanical elasticity from the collagen and elastin content, those extracellular matrix fibers that give it the structure and the spring and the rebound that we need to have for healthy skin. So significant increase there. And now these people were just healthy people. There wasn't anything unusual about their skin. These were just regular healthy people. And we wanted to see if drinking Noni plus collagen would improve their skin health, and it did. Now here's what we call biological elasticity, the R7 values. And again, to review, this is the collagen, elastin, and skin hydration levels of that influence this type of elasticity here. And this would indicate that skin hydration was better, probably due to the increased hyaluronic acid content of the skin. So again, here are the papers. You can the links for these papers that I talked about, and where this data is given and presented to the public, peer-reviewed. Encourage you to go look those up and review them. And if anybody has any questions, you just give it to them and say, "Here you go." There's a scientist in America who thinks it would be pretty interesting. Whether they do or not, I don't know. But that's what we do here at Morinda. We develop quality products. We do research to support those products. Do research ahead of time so we know what we're doing when we design these products, and then present them to the public. And so with that, I hope you get kind of an idea of what we're doing and what the benefits are. So I guess now we have a few more minutes.
Yes.
So we can take a question or two.
Thank you very much, Brett. There's a lot of information that's come through again from you. We've got quite a few people on today. So do we have anyone that's got some questions they've thought of to ask Brett throughout his presentation? Some of them came on a little bit later, but can you see the chat box there, Brett?
I see one from Tavai.
Yeah.
Let me see. I guess I could read that maybe.
Yeah, can you?
If everybody can. I guess they put up with my Yankee accent already, so I'll read that and see if we do all right. So do you want to read it or shall I?
So basically it looks like he's looking for the beneficial differences between Tisha Noni juice and Max. We'll go for the first question. Okay.
They're both beneficial, right? We designed one to have a higher iridoid content and include some other fruits. You know, there's not a lot of fruits that have iridoids. Noni's the king of all those, basically. But the Max is, so in that Russia study that I referenced, we saw that that some of the strength of the effect was a little greater with Max than with Tisha Noni juice. And we also did some studies, antioxidant studies, where we measured antioxidant levels of the skin. Previous ones, we drew blood. This one, we haven't published this yet. This is still kind of internal, but we measured the skin antioxidant levels using a technique where you can just measure that non-invasively. And we saw that Max had a stronger effect. So they both do similar things. One had a greater effect in doing it than the other. So the differences is that one has, I guess, some more kick to it, so to speak. But you can get benefits from Tisha Noni juice as well. The bulk of our research is done on Tisha Noni juice, and there's a lot there. So the question is what do you feel is going to benefit you? What do you like flavor-wise? You know, those are some personal decisions you can make. Both are going to do good for you.
Mm-hmm. So then he goes on to the Noni collagen. Is Noni really improve collagen itself, or is it the collagen quantity? So I guess he's asking if it's the marine or the Noni.
Okay. So we looked for good sources of collagen to begin with. It's just not regular collagen. It's hydrolyzed collagen, marine collagen. Mm-hmm. So it's been treated in a way that the body can utilize it quickly and utilize it well. The Noni, what I was presenting there earlier, was the Noni is taking whatever you provide to it and using it really well to build the skin, to improve the skin. So the benefit of combining the two is that we give some good starting material to the body. Then we add the Noni in, so the Noni helps the body use it even better.
So it kind of makes it the delivery, right?
Yeah.
Delivers.
Yeah.
Okay. He has gone on to ask a question about Noni plus CBD. And then can you confirm Noni exclusively is from the islands of Tahiti?
So if he means by the islands of Tahiti, he means French Polynesia? Yes. Yes, we only source from there.
Uh-huh.
We have in the past been approached by people to say, hey, we have Noni too, but we are getting our Noni only from French Polynesia. And there's a good reason why that is. Not only have we invested a lot in the infrastructure there, But we actually did a study where we took noni samples from around the world where it was growing, and we've done phytochemical analysis of those noni samples. Now let's just talk iridoids. The iridoid, the fruit samples that had the highest iridoid content was from French Polynesia.
Yeah.
And then of course those levels are similar. You go to some of the other Pacific islands, they start to drop some. Then as you get further out, those levels get even less. So the highest was in French Polynesia. So we've done a lot of work. We published all that data. So people ask why Tahitian noni? We say, look, it's the best stuff.
Yeah.
And can I explain a little further? I guess if we have a minute or two here.
Yeah.
So there was a guy named Will McClatchy who had actually presented this idea in one of his papers. That as people migrated further east across the Pacific, going from island to island, as they colonized new islands, they'd start out kind of towards the west in the Pacific where there was more diversity among noni plants. And they noticed that certain noni plants would have better activity, better benefits. So they would selectively take that with them on their canoes when they go colonize the next island further to the east. And they kept doing that as they went. And so they would select out the best genetics of the noni plant and by the time you get out to French Polynesia, you're pretty far out east. You're as far as you're pretty going to go before you end up in America, South America. So that was kind of the best stuff. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. He has asked a question about CBD. That's up to you, Brett. I know we're kind of restricted on that right now. We do have a forum coming up in a couple of weeks about CBD, so that could be saved if you feel. But if you have anything you want to add on to that.
Well, I'm going to answer it this way, whether it's CBD or collagen or some other compound. One thing we know is that when you add noni and combine it with them, usually you get a better product. You get, better efficacy. And that fits in with things that Paul Pittard talked about in French Polynesia and these other islands as well. That there's a guy named Arthur Whistler. He was affiliated with the University of Hawaii, and he's an expert on Polynesian medicinal plants. He wrote a book called Polynesian Herbal Medicine, and in there about noni, he said it was the most widely used plant prior to the European era. They would use it in different formulations, and they found that the noni seemed to have add a kick, so to speak, to everything.
Yeah.
So I could answer that in generalities, that whatever we combine with noni, there's a reason for it, and it usually improves things.
Yeah. Nola's asked if there's any evidence for endometriosis and pain, chronic fatigue system, and we just say that noni helps with energy.
Well, noni helps with energy, chronic fatigue.
Bro, we can't hear you right now.
Okay, can you still hear me? No? Am I good? Okay, can you hear me now? Okay.
No, I can lip read. So he said, can you hear me right now?
Okay. All right. Let's see. My microphone says I'm still
Sorry,
talking.
guys, we have just lost it.